Welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Jeff Pratt, and joining me as always is Trent Henrich. How's it going, Trent?
It's going good, and I think we have a special guest today, don't we,
We
Jeff?
do have a special guest today. One of my very good friends from Emerson College, Jay Zim. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Jay. You're going to be joining us today, and who knows, maybe moving forward if you do very well on these picks, but we'll see.
A lot of pressure is on me today, Jeff. My name is Jay Zim. I like football a lot, so I'm happy to share my picks here about Week 7. A sketch comedian by trade, so not my day job, but I love watching football, and I'm ready to share some picks for sure.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, Jay definitely knows his stuff. You might know him from Vine a couple of years back.
Oh boy,
major following. But yeah. All right, moving past that, Trent. I'll just recap where we're at with our picks right now. We both went 8 for 14 last week, so that sits us at me being 60 for 91 and you being 59 for 91 out of these picks. And we've got a solid slate of games again for Week 7. There are a couple of tough matchups, so let's just jump straight into things. All right, Thursday Night Football. Not necessarily the most intriguing matchup, but I have a feeling it could be a high-scoring affair. We have the New York Giants taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, Trent, I'll open it up to you. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting game because the Eagles' offense is really depleted this week. Ertz just hit the IR. Sanders is going to be out. They still don't have Goddard back. I mean, I don't know who Carson Wentz is going to throw to. Probably Travis Fulgham is going to be his favorite target. I think the Giants have a chance to win this game just based off of their performance the last couple of weeks. They actually put up some points, which they didn't do the first 3 or 4 weeks. So I like their chances here against the Eagles. The Eagles have a good defense, but I'm roll with the Giants, see if Daniel Jones can pull out a win.
All right, sounds good. Taking the upset in the first week. All right, Jay, I'll throw things to you. Who are you taking in your first pick on the Rollout?
Yeah, well, it's my first pick, and I'm not too confident in this one because, quite frankly, it's just one of those games where it gets a toss-up. Both these teams are in the NFC East, so obviously they're not that good. But I kind of like what Joe Judge is doing with this defense for the New York Giants. Despite being 1-5, they looked good against the Rams. They obviously played pretty well enough to get a win against the Washington football team. I'm going to pick them again here for the reasons that Trent just said. The Eagles just lost 2 offensive starters. I think it's going to be a weird game for sure, but, I have to go with the Giants this one.
All right, Jay, you said they played well enough to beat the Washington football team. I'm not sure how well you have to play to beat the Washington football team at this point.
You have to show up.
You have to show up. That's about it, right?
And walk on the field.
All right. So both of you guys are taking the Giants, and I know that the Eagles are banged up in this game. And historically, Trent knows this. I have not been a fan of them whatsoever. I don't think I've picked them once this year. I'm breaking that trend today, and I'm taking the Eagles in this game just because they showed up and they gave the Ravens a run for their money last week, even with a banged up squad. Obviously, losing Miles Sanders is tough, but Boston Scott, we've seen this before. He's capable of stepping in, handling a decently sized workload, and producing for them. Losing Zach Ertz hurts, but at the same time, he has not been himself so far this year. So I don't think it's going to be a huge drop off in their offense. Trent, I think you nailed it when you said that Carson Wentz is going to be looking to Travis Fulgham, who has absolutely broken out over the 3 games he's played. He's averaging, I think, 21.5 PPR points per game from a fantasy perspective. So he has definitely jumped into the conversation for a wide receiver 2/flex consideration. I also like Greg Ward in this matchup with Zach Ertz out to step up and handle a bigger workload again this week. But all that being said, I just don't trust Daniel Jones. I know Carson Wentz is leading the league in picks right now, turnovers as well. He's looked awful. But at the same time, I think that this Eagles team is probably just a little bit more mentally tough than the Giants, which isn't saying much because, as you said, both these teams have combined for 3 wins maybe so far this year. So, I'm going to take the Eagles in this game. I don't feel very confident about it, but I do think it's going to be a surprisingly close game, high-scoring affair. All right, moving on to the next matchup, we have what should be a much more interesting game, the Carolina Panthers taking on the New Orleans Saints. I know that people are probably more interested in watching that one than Thursday Night Football. All right, Trent, I'll throw it to you. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Saints in this one. Michael Thomas, I think, is going to make his return this week, which is
He has a hamstring issue and might not be back. He tweaked his hamstring in practice this week. Slant Boy is having some serious problems this week. I don't know if he's out, but I did hear that he is definitely his availability, sorry, is up in the air for this
He
one.
went on first take though. He was like, "Watch me next week, Stephen A." So I don't know. I think he's playing.
All right, we'll see. All right, Trent, go ahead and continue though.
even with his availability up in the air, I'm still going to roll with the Saints. The Carolina Panthers have outperformed, I think, my and your our projections this season so far. But you were really high on the Saints to start the season. I still think the Saints are a legit team. They have been banged up, and Drew Brees started kind of slow. Without Michael Thomas, he had problems. His passing just didn't look the same. I think they do get the win this week. I think Alvin Kamara is still going to just absolutely burn this Panthers defense. It may be a closer game, but I'll take the Saints probably around maybe a touchdown win.
All right, sounds good. Jay, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Saints as well. This Panthers team has impressed me. Their defense is not that great, or good against receivers. Not great for starting receivers from a fantasy perspective, which is something I did not expect this season. And yeah, I mean, the Saints are trying to win a Super Bowl, and these are the games that you need to win if you're trying to get there, especially with a good team in your division and a pretty good team that you're playing this week in the division as well. Not just one good team. I'm not saying that they're going to lose the division to the Panthers, but there's some competition, and I think these are the games that you need to win if you're trying to be in the same conversation you were last year and at the start of this year. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm not as concerned as everyone about Drew Brees. He's not really playing that bad despite not really getting the ball down the field. He's still being efficient, and with Michael Thomas back, it can only help him. So I think they need to win this game, and so I think they do.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Saints in this one as well. I feel a little bit more confident picking the Panthers if they beat the Bears last week, but they choked. Teddy Bridgewater had the ball with a chance to win the game, and then he threw a pick right away, I think on the first or second play of the potentially game-winning drive there. So I do like
pick six too.
Yeah, I know. They did. So I do like Carolina this year, but top to bottom, this Saints team, they're still a much better football team with Michael Thomas back or not, which obviously we'll probably get more news about that today or tomorrow as they practice more heading into this week's game. But assuming he is back and that this hamstring injury isn't enough to keep him out, Jay, I agree with you completely. I think that this really is going to help out Drew Brees because he hasn't been looking great throwing the ball deep so far this year. But with Michael Thomas back, I mean, he earned his nickname Slant Boy for a reason. That is where he lives and dies. So I think that will help Drew Brees out a lot. I just think that it's so hard, especially for this Carolina run defense, which has looked pretty abysmal so far this year, to shut down guys like Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray. I think that even if Drew Brees doesn't play his best, the performances from guys like Kamara and Murray will be enough to put them over the top. So I'm going to take the Saints there too. All right, we all took New Orleans in this second matchup. We're going to move into one that I think we can probably go through pretty quickly. It's the Buffalo Bills taking on the New York Jets. Trent, I know you just placed a bet about the Jets going 0-16 this year, so I have a feeling I know where you're going with this take, but I'll throw it to you anyway.
Yeah, the Bills should absolutely destroy the Jets this week. Even though the Jets are at home, it really does not matter at this point. Joe Flacco has looked awful. I don't even know if maybe Sam Darnold will come back and start. Who knows? Either way, it doesn't matter. He's playing quarterback for the Jets. The Bills are going to get the win pretty handily, probably by 2 touchdowns. So, yeah, I'm just going to go with the Bills.
Yeah, I think I know for me that pretty much covers it too. I'm going to take the Bills as well for obvious reasons, even though I didn't place the bet that you did, Trent. I do think that the Jets will somehow pick up a win eventually, but not this game, not against a Bills team that is looking for a win right now. Jay, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I'm going to take Joe Flacco now. I'm taking the Bills. Trevor Lawrence is not walking through that door yet. And even if he did, look, they have some real problems. I honestly didn't know much about Adam Gase coming into the season, or last season, I guess, rather, other than he was in Miami for a while. But I think it is clear that he is not ready for the job. And even from game one, I know they went on a little bit of a run last year, but it's just looked bad, and they've been trading pieces away. They sent one of their tackles to the Bucks. Le'Veon's obviously gone, so they're in full tank mode, and I understand. So tough times to be a New York Jets fan, but hopefully for them, they do get something from it out of Clemson.
Yeah, I know, Trent, that we had that conversation earlier this year. I'm not sure if it was on this podcast, but about if we think the Jets get that number 1 overall pick, are you taking Trevor Lawrence? I'll just throw it to you real quick to get your answer on that one.
100%.
Yeah.
He's the best quarterback in college football. He's going to be a stud, no doubt in my mind. I mean, he may have a slow start to his career unless the Jets start building on him real quick. But, yeah, he's going to be a New York Jet.
Yeah, I think so too. I heard a couple of interesting rumors saying that he might legitimately consider returning to Clemson if the Jets get the number 1 overall pick this year. And I wouldn't recommend that because obviously we look at what happened with Tua, and injuries are always a possibility. And Trevor Lawrence has looked downright phenomenal so far this year in college football, and we know that he's by far probably the best quarterback talent we've seen coming out of the draft since Andrew Luck, in my opinion. So I think that he's going to end up being a New York Jet too. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the Jets can get for Sam Darnold at this point, because we've heard that they might not even be able to get a first rounder for him, which to me, kind of preposterous because he's shown flashes of serious potential. Obviously, he's playing behind one of the worst offensive lines of football, and that definitely doesn't help him out. And his best receiver is Jamison Crowder, and we like Jamison Crowder, but he's 5'8" and not a true number 1 wide receiver on a contender. So they definitely haven't helped him out. It'll be interesting to see what they can get for him, assuming they do have the number 1 overall pick. And Trevor Lawrence is available. All right. We all take the Bills on that one. No shocker there. Moving on to the 4th matchup of the week, we have the Cleveland Browns taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. It's the Battle of Ohio. So I think it's only right that I go first, being that half of my family's from Cleveland. Trent, I know that makes you laugh a little bit, but just providing analysis on this game, I think this is going to be pretty close. The Bengals obviously came out really strong last week and then completely choked. And that was evident of how their season's going. Obviously, they're still really young. They've had problems holding onto leads. AJ Green finally showed up, though. So I think that's probably a promising thing for them, especially if they're looking to move him so that they can maybe get a higher draft pick than they were expecting at the deadline. But yeah, looking at this game, I do think Cleveland's going to come out, bounce back. Obviously, horrible showing last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Trent, I think I picked the Browns in that game. So, I might be screwing myself over here picking them again, but this Bengals team is not the Steelers. And I think that they're going to be able to run the ball down their throat, which is what the key to success is for Cleveland this year. And hopefully Baker can look a little better than he did last week out of play action passes, stuff like that. Get OBJ, Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper more involved. This team is just too talented to drop this game to Cincinnati, especially if they want to be serious contenders for the playoffs at this point in the season. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm taking the Browns with this one. Trent, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, this one was a tough pick for me because the Browns looked so good, when they're playing the Cowboys, and then they roll up last week, and they looked awful against Pittsburgh. And Baker Mayfield, he got benched in the 4th quarter, not because the score was out of hand, because he was playing that poorly. I'm going to go with Joe Burrow. I think the Bengals are at home. I kind of want to see the upset. I'm a little worried about how effective Kareem Hunt's going to be. I think he could destroy this Bengals team. But I'm going to put some faith in Joe Burrow this week to get a big win over a divisional rival. And they're at home, and he's going to put on a show. So I'm going to go with the Bengals in the upset here.
Yeah, I'm definitely expecting this to be a high-scoring affair because both of these defenses are subpar, to say the least. And we know that Burrow is capable of having big games. He's got a very dynamic offensive arsenal to work with. So this is going to be an interesting one for sure. Jay, I'll throw it to you to finish it off.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I picked the Browns last week. They really let me down. Maybe that was stupid. But I'm going to pick them again this week. It's not. I think they should look, even without Nick Chubb. I think they should be able to run the ball against this defense. If they don't, that's a problem. But on the flip side of the ball, the offense of the Browns gets so much attention. Obviously, they have a star-studded team, right, on the offensive side of the ball. But Myles Garrett is still on the field, and that's a nightmare for rookie quarterbacks. That's no joke. And even despite how good Joe Burrow is, so we'll see. He's proven that he can put up points against good defenses in the Colts last week. I don't know if they're the number one defense like some people have been saying. I don't think so, but he's not your average rookie quarterback. I think he's going to make it a game. I would not be terribly surprised if the Browns found a way to lose. I've been watching them do that for 20 years. But I'm still going to take the Browns. And yeah, you're right. This is a game you have to win if you're Cleveland.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, Jay, we are both sticking with the Browns here, but Trent, I think, picked the Texans for the first 4 weeks of the season. So we all have our teams, and we picked the Falcons for the first 3 weeks of the season as well. Both of us did. So there are a couple of teams that were just adamant they're going to win the game, but I think that what you said put it best, Jay, that if the Cleveland Browns are going to be actual contenders this year and not pretenders, this is a game you have to win. All right, moving on, we have the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Washington football team, Jay's hometown team. Trent, I know we had a big argument about Andy Dalton versus Dak Prescott last week. The Cowboys looked horrendous in all aspects of the word. I'll throw it to you first. Maybe talk a little bit about what you're expecting from Dalton this week and the Cowboys offense against a surprisingly strong Washington defense. Their offense has been horrible, which is why they're still losing games.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in the score, at least last week, for the Cowboys game. Having said that, though, Zeke looked awful. He was actually benched at one point for Tony Pollard, and Pollard was actually looking pretty good. And the players came out and said that they were upset with the coaches. Like, they have the talent, and the coaches were just, they had a poor game plan put together. I still like the Red Rifle. I still love him. I'm still going to roll with him here. Washington's been a weird team this season. They beat the Eagles week 1. They lost to the Giants last week. Like, I don't really know what to do with them right now. But I know the Cowboys have offensive firepower. I'm sure the Washington football team will put up points against the Cowboys. But I still think the Cowboys will outscore Washington in a pretty high-scoring game just because both defenses aren't that great. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys here.
Fair enough. All right, Jay, what say you?
Yeah, I'm going to pick against my hometown team. I think, like you said, the football team will have a pretty good game offensively. I mean, how could you not expect that? The Cowboys are on pace for one of the worst total points from a defense perspective seasons. So, I'm looking at Kyle Allen and I'm thinking he's probably going to dump the ball off to running backs a lot. And if McLaurin's not open, and they should be able to get some yards at least. But at the end of the day, I have more faith in a veteran quarterback in Andy Dalton with weapons in his second start of the season than I do with Kyle Allen and that team. And look, I don't know why they benched Haskins, to be honest. That's a whole other story. So, I think the Cowboys win this game.
Yeah, Trent and I actually filmed the podcast right after Haskins was benched, and we both agreed that there's probably something that had to have gone on behind the scenes there. He had to have disrespected someone on the coaching staff or something. I understand if you want to bench him, but sending him all the way down to third string and not giving him any reps at practice seems like something else entirely, because that just isn't a smart move by Ron Rivera, who has been a pretty smart head coach throughout his entire career. So that was definitely interesting to see. I'm going to take the Cowboys in this game as well, pretty much for all the reasons you guys said. I think that at the end of the day, despite their defense being one of the worst defenses in football, Andy Dalton and company will find a way to outscore them. This is probably going to be ugly for both defenses, but, could be somewhat interesting if it's a high-scoring affair. From a fantasy perspective, watching Kenyon Drake, out of all people, absolutely destroy them last week. I think that Antonio Gibson probably has RB1 potential this week, especially if he can handle the bulk of the touches. I know J.D. McKissick out-touched him last week and looked pretty solid, but Gibson has more carries on the ground usually. He's still involved in the passing game, so I look for him to have a pretty good week. And then another thing is a lot of people were worried about CeeDee Lamb coming into last week because when Andy Dalton took over after Dak Prescott suffered that gruesome ankle injury, he didn't look to Lamb, really. He looked at Amari Cooper, and then obviously he had that big hitter to Michael Gallup to set up the game-winning field goal. But then CeeDee Lamb came out and was by far the Cowboys' best receiver, probably the only bright spot of that game for Dallas. So I think that that's something you have to look forward to as a CeeDee Lamb fantasy owner, as a positive sign, and maybe a negative sign as an Amari Cooper fantasy owner. And then I have no idea what to do with Michael Gallup at this point. He just seems way too inconsistent to start unless you're playing a team like the Falcons. But all right, moving on. We all take Dallas in that matchup. No surprise. This upcoming game is going to be pretty interesting in my opinion. We have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Houston Texans and Trent's favorite quarterback in the league, Deshaun Watson. I'll throw it to you, Trent. Who are you taking?
Yeah, this is tough. I do like Houston. And if you watched their game against the Titans last week, it was one of the most entertaining games of the season so far. Watson looked really good. I think it was kind of obvious whoever got the ball first in the game because both offenses were rolling towards the end of the game last week. I'm going to have to go against Deshaun. I think that Rodgers kind of got embarrassed against Brady and the Bucs last week. It was a really tough showing. He hasn't thrown 2 picks in a long time, and he did that really early on in that game. I think that Devontae Adams will have a really good game against this Texans defense. Aaron Jones is going to get back to his normal ways and tear up Houston. And I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And I think it's going to be close, but I think when it comes down to it, Aaron Rodgers is probably more confident than Deshaun Watson, like having like a 2-minute drill or something like that. And I think it's going to come down to that type of scenario. So I'm going to take the Packers in a close one here.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Packers as well. Pretty much for the same reasons you said, Trent. If you look at that Green Bay Bucs game, Aaron Rodgers had the ball with the ability of going up 17-0. And I think that if the Packers score on that possession instead of throwing a pick six, that game might be over because Aaron Rodgers does not blow 17-point leads. He is not a quarterback who chokes like that. Green Bay is not known for choking away games. Instead, obviously, he throws 2 straight picks. The Bucs get 2 touchdowns in the matter of less than 2 minutes, and that game just completely flips. So I agree with you completely, Trent. I think Rodgers and Green Bay are going to come out mad in this game. Aaron Jones is one of the most dynamic running backs in football. I know a lot of people weren't giving him the benefit of the doubt this year from a fantasy perspective, considering they drafted A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams is still there. But Jones has looked up to the part, definitely worth an extension this offseason at least if you're Green Bay, because he's a huge part of your offense, not only as a running back, but as a receiver. I do look for Devontae Adams to get more involved. Guys like Robert Tonyan, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think that this offense is going to be humming against a subpar Texans defense. And then on Houston's side of the ball, I just don't think they have enough firepower to keep up with them. Although Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller seem to have finally hit their groove and found their step over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm going to take Green Bay in this one. Trent, I'll throw it to you. Or not Trent, sorry, Jay. I'll throw it to you to finish things up for this prediction.
Yeah, well, I agree with both of you guys. Look, Aaron Rodgers should light up this defense. You said they were subpar. I think they're a little worse than that. Just in my opinion, I don't know. I've been seeing them get lit up, and I think the biggest difference will probably be the Packers' pass rushers. I think that if they can get home to Deshaun Watson, I think they can, change the game in the way that I don't think the Texans can do. I don't think the Texans can do nearly what the Bucs did last week in terms of getting to Aaron Rodgers. And even forcing him off this first read, I don't think is going to happen very much. And even when he gets forced off that read, the Bucs were stopping him when he was, getting athletic and stuff. So I just don't see the Texans rattling him like that. I think the Packers bounce back. But you're right, this Texans team is a pretty good 1-4 team. I mean, they have Deshaun Watson as their starting quarterback. So, anything is on the table. And listen, I think Deshaun Watson definitely deserves better. It's unfortunate to go from a season with so much promise like last season to, the coach is fired week, was it 4 or 5? That rarely happens in the National Football League. So, unfortunate there.
All right, yeah, we're all taking Green Bay in that one as well. I think it is going to be a pretty interesting game. Moving on, we have a matchup that I have no idea what to think about here. We have the Detroit Lions taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Detroit and Atlanta both looked pretty good last week, which is something that you won't hear us saying often. Obviously, Detroit got a huge win over Jacksonville, and Atlanta finally got their first W of the season over the Vikings out of all teams in pretty convincing manner. Obviously, Minnesota was able to put up some points down the stretch, but Atlanta pretty much dominated them throughout the entirety of the game. I know, Trent, you said that you would probably never take the Falcons again after they let you down in the first 3 weeks of the season. I'll throw this to you, though. Are you breaking that promise?
I will say at least they fired Dan Quinn because that had to happen. He should have been gone last year, years ago. I don't even know. But this is an interesting game. I think the Lions looked pretty damn good last week, coming off their unexpected bye. Yeah, they looked good against the Jags. It's probably going to be another. I think a lot of these games are going to be high scoring this week because I mean the Lions defense is pretty good and the Falcons defense is mediocre at best. I'm going to go with the Lions here. Probably a little biased because I just can't stand the Falcons still. I think they made the right move of firing Dan Quinn. Matt Stafford looked good. Kenny Galladay looked good. And DeAndre Swift had a legit game last week, which he hadn't had all season. And that may be the X factor in this game. If the run game is working for this Lions team against a weak Falcons defense, I think the Lions could get this win. So I'm going to take the upset and go with the Lions.
Yeah, I think the thing with Detroit is every year we look at their team and we think that their offense is extremely talented. They just struggle to put it all together. And maybe we finally saw them do it last week against Jacksonville. Obviously, Matt Stafford didn't have an incredible game. I think that will not be the case this week against the abysmal Falcons defense. I'm expecting him to put up huge numbers. Kenny Galladay should have a tremendous week. And Marvin Jones is a guy that, from a fantasy perspective, I know he's been pretty disappointing, but I wouldn't mind flexing him maybe this week because this matchup is just too salivating to pass up. So I'm going to take the Falcons in this game, though. Despite all that being said, I know I know, a complete 180, right? Complete 180. I think that Detroit has a good game, but if the Falcons can come out and play offensively like they did against the Vikings, who are much better defensively than the Lions are, I think that they're going to outscore them. And that's just me. I know that I might be in the minority there. I know, Trent, you said you never take the Falcons again, but Julio Jones came back last week and was a huge X factor, finally playing up to the potential of the guy we know he can be. I think racked up over 33 fantasy points last week. So he was an absolute monster. Hayden Hurst had a good game. So that, I think, is a big X factor for the Falcons offense moving forward. We know that Matt Ryan historically loves his tight ends. He did wonders with Austin Hooper over the past 2 years, and Hayden Hurst hadn't really looked the part heading into this game or the last game, but he finally showed up. Then I hope that they can continue that trend. Todd Gurley, I'm expecting a big week for him too. So I am going to take the Falcons in this week, despite me saying everything positive about the Lions. I think this one's going to be a shootout, and I'm rolling with Atlanta. Jay, I'll throw it to you to finish off these predictions.
Yeah. I picked against both these teams last week, which is unfortunate. And I think I'm going to have to go with the Lions here. It's close. I really do agree with you, though. Matt Stafford's going to have a very good day. Probably one of the best of his season, which is what everyone's doing against this Falcons team. And I don't know. Can Matt Ryan have the same game he had last week? It seems like that's the only way they're really going to win. I mean, I know this offense is stacked, but like that defense is just Swiss cheese. It's been all year. Like that Packers game a couple weeks ago. Oh my goodness! Like I've never seen people more open on the football field. In the red zone, you could just send a running back on a wheel, and no one would even be on that side of the football field. So I can't pick against the Falcons very much this season, or can't pick the Falcons very much this season.
All right, so I took Atlanta there. Trent and Jay both took the Lions. I think that one's going to be a toss-up, probably a high-scoring affair. Moving on to our next game, we have the battle of two of the remaining three undefeated teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Tennessee Titans. This should be an absolute slugfest. I know a lot of people are looking forward to watching this game. Both of these teams have greatly outperformed expectations up to this point for their season, but they're both extremely tough on both sides of the football. Trent, I'll throw it to you first. Who are you taking?
Both these teams have outperformed our expectations, that's for sure. The Steelers' defense has been unbelievable, and Chase Claypool has broken out to be honestly the best rookie wide receiver right now in this class. I mean, at least for
CD.
For stats, I mean, Chase Claypool in the last 3 games has like 5 touchdowns. I mean, we're talking about games where Chase Claypool was actually involved in the offense, kind of the first 2 weeks, so like the last 4 weeks, whatever. Chase Claypool he's been the best rookie wide receiver in my opinion. I mean, I think CD is the most skilled and have the best career, but right now Chase Claypool was putting up some serious numbers. Having said that, I'm honestly just gonna roll with the home team. I think both these teams are really good. I like the Titans offense more than I like the Steelers offense. I like the Steelers defense more than the Titans defense. I think it's going to be a really close game. And I can't believe I'm picking with Ryan Tannehill at this point in time, but I didn't think Ryan Tannehill would be defeated. So both teams have outperformed expectations, and I'm going to go with the Titans here.
All right, Jay, I'll throw it to you. Who are you taking?
Yeah, this is the game of the week, without a doubt. It's very rare that this late in the season 2 undefeated teams meet. It's like rarer than I thought. I saw something like an NFL, stats on Twitter that said it's only happened like a handful of times. So this is going to be a great game, and the coaches in this game have been very impressive. Obviously, I expect the world out of Mike Tomlin. When was the last time he had a losing season? He's a fantastic coach, probably a Hall of Famer by the time it's all done, and he's done a great job with this team, clearly. I mean, they have come ready to play every week. And, I can't say enough about this Titans team also and what Mike Vrabel is doing. He is one of the only Patriots products to have this good of a start of a head coaching career. You know what I mean? Like it's really fun to watch. I'm rooting for him, honestly, because this team is great. Derrick Henry, I cannot say enough about. You can't say enough about a lot of, this team. Like they have played through adversity. They have shown up. They have practiced illegally, and I think that they are poised to have a great season. However, I'm going to go with the Steelers in this game simply because of the fact that their defense is better, and I think that can win you football games sometimes. And if we remember the first 3 games of the season, Titans were in a lot of close games, and I think they have a challenge here, and maybe this is the first close game that they lose. I don't know. It is a toss-up. These teams are absolutely stacked.
All right. Trent took the Titans. Jay took the Steelers. And Jay, I'm going to agree with you here pretty much for the reason you touched on at the end there. You look at the Titans, their last 3 out of their last 4 games, they've won within a score. And all of them were games that you could argue they should have lost. So at this point, I just think they're due for one. And then you look at the Steelers, they're coming off a 38-7 rout of a Browns team that a lot of people were expecting to be pretty good this year, and they have been, and they just made them look like little boys among men last week. So I think that you look at the Titans, the key to stopping them is stopping Derrick Henry. There probably isn't a defense besides maybe Baltimore in the league right now that is more capable of shutting down Derrick Henry. I'm still not positive that Ryan Tannehill can beat you through the air if he has to be the main factor in this offense. I know that obviously, A.J. Brown returned. He's looked really good. Jonnu Smith is still a question mark for this game. I think that if he plays, that's definitely a big boost for this Tennessee offense. But yeah, I'm going to take the Steelers. I think that they're able to at least neutralize Derrick Henry to a certain extent. And their offense is as high octane as anyone. If Juju Smith-Schuster can get going, that is going to be huge for them. I know he's been pretty bad so far this season, but they're going to be getting Deontay Johnson back, it looks, this week. Their offense is going to be at full force. James Conner has surprised a lot of people. I know Trent called that he was going to have a good year, and I didn't believe it, but he's definitely come out and surprised me, at least.
And he's staying healthy.
Exactly. And then you look at the other guys down their depth chart. James Washington is a major factor in all of their games this year. So they just have a lot of weapons on this team. Eric Ebron, we know, is capable of being a legit red zone threat, even though he hasn't necessarily done it so far this year. Big Ben is playing back to Big Ben level, which we've expected from him despite the elbow injury. So all that being said, I think this game's going to be close, but I think the Titans are due for a loss and Pittsburgh keeps rolling. All right, moving on. We have another really good game. The Seattle Seahawks taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Jay, I'm going to throw this one to you first since we've come to you last on all of these predictions. Who are you taking?
All right, this is my upset of the week, and that might upset some people. I'm taking the Cardinals in this game, although I'm not sitting here like it's a lock. I don't think it's a lock, but I'm taking them simply because you can't win every game. You know, if you want my Colin Cowherd type analogy here, when you see a 200 hitter come up to the plate and he's like, you know, he's 0 for 3 in late innings, you're like, all right, he's due for one. Russell Wilson, the Seattle Seahawks are like 5 for 5 heading into the, you know, late innings here. Well, really just the midseason, but in this analogy. So, you know, this is not a 16-0 team simply because that this defense is not even like remotely good enough to be near that. So I think Russell Wilson is still going to have a good game even against Budda Baker and this Cardinals team. But then I look at the Cardinals side and offensively, if they can limit turnovers and penalties, they are a very good offense. I think heading into last week, they were second in penalties, and they definitely played a clean game on Monday night. And Kyler Murray is efficient when he's not throwing interceptions, which is frequently. But, you know, and then I look at guys like, you know, D-Hop, Kenyon Drake, hopefully he can keep it going. Chase Edmonds seems to be efficient when he's throwing the ball. And, you know, I think they can have their way with the Seahawks defense. And then we all forget that the Vikings, who just lost to the Falcons, had a chance to close out that game against the Seahawks. I don't know what they did there. You never want to give someone like Russell Wilson a chance to drive down the field and make yet another statement case for the MVP. Like, you just literally gave him like why? I don't know. But, you know, maybe the Cardinals show up and have their way offensively. And if not, I won't be that surprised.
All right. Jay takes the upset there. Trent, I've already talked to you about this game. I know where you're going. I know who you love in this matchup. I'll throw it to you. Why are you taking the Seattle Seahawks?
Because they're the best team in the NFL. It's pretty simple. I mean, and just to break down the Cardinals a little bit, I do think the Cardinals are a good team, but they beat the Cowboys pretty handily last week. Kyler Murray threw 9 for 24. That's not really good, and that doesn't depict a 38-10 win or whatever. Yeah, he can run the ball. Don't get me wrong, he can run the ball. So can Kenyon Drake, and that was Kenyon Drake's first big week. I don't think he puts those same numbers up again. I know the Seahawks defense is weak. I don't know if they're weak as the Cowboys, but they're pretty weak. Let's be honest. But the Seahawks they're undefeated, and everything they played is actually a legit team, in my opinion. I mean, they played the Cowboys when they had Dak, and they played the Pats. They played all 5. Like, all their wins are legit wins. The Cardinals have played Washington. They've played the Jets. Like, they have a good record. I think they're 4-2 or something like that.
49ers they beat.
Yeah, they beat the 49ers week 1, yeah. And they had Jimmy G at least that week. I don't even know if the 49ers are that good. So a lot of their wins, to me, aren't that very impressive teams. And I think this is going to be a good game because the Seahawks defense is bad and the Cardinals will score points. But I mean, if you're giving the ball to one quarterback in the fourth quarter, I'm going to take Russell Wilson over any quarterback. So I'm going to roll with the Seahawks here. And I guess I'm going against Jay.
Yeah, and Trent, you're going to be going against me here too. I think I told you that I like the Cardinals, especially against the spread this week. Game has a similar vibe to the Steelers-Browns going in, where you have two teams, one of them you know is a contender, and one of them you think might be a contender. And I think, unlike the Browns, the Cardinals are actually going to show up this game. Man, not to sound like a broken record here, but for the similar reasons that the Titans are due for a loss, if you look at the Seahawks last couple of games, could have lost to the Vikings, the Dolphins were there. They probably shouldn't have lost to the Dolphins, but the Dolphins were there. They could have lost to the Cowboys. They could have lost to the Patriots. So from that standpoint, I also think that they're due for a loss. I don't know if it's going to come this week, but I'm going to take the Cardinals just because I'm a big fan of Kyler Murray, especially when he's out of the pocket scrambling. I think that hopefully Kenyon Drake last week can be a turning point for him. I'm not so sure. I think it's probably more of an accurate representation of just how bad the Cowboys defense is. But they have other weapons beside him. Chase Edmonds, despite him not being a major factor last week against Dallas, I think is a really solid player. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is making a case to be top 2, top 3 wide receiver in the league, per usual. Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk have looked really good. So this Arizona team can score with anyone when Kyler Murray is playing up to the elite level we know he's capable of. And I think he rises to the occasion. Too. Exactly. I think that he rises to the occasion here for Arizona. This is, when you look at it, probably a bigger game for Arizona than it is for Seattle in terms of who needs to win. So I'm going to take Arizona for that fact. I think that they come out, not necessarily want it more, but, the Seahawks, they're due for a loss at this point, considering how close their last few games have been. So I'm going to take Arizona there as well. Trent, no surprise you're going to the Seahawks there. We know how much you love them. And Russell Wilson, I think we all can agree right now that he deserves to be the MVP. Moving on, though, we have the Denver Broncos, who are coming off a sad upset of our New England Patriots, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll start here. I'm expecting Denver to get rocked in this game, to be completely honest.
You said that last week.
I said that last week too, but I feel a little bit more confident in the Kansas City Chiefs offense than the New England Patriots offense. Casey, this is a statement game for them. I think that they're still fighting for that number 1 seed, which is also important this year in the expanded playoff format. So this is a game where they need to win if they're going to get it. Patrick Mahomes, he's Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback in football, unless you believe Russell Wilson's the best quarterback in football. Trent, I know we haven't had that conversation in a bit, but I still think that Mahomes is more talented. And obviously this Chiefs offense, at the end of the day, I think they're just going to outscore Denver, because you look at what Drew Lock and the Broncos did last week against the Patriots. They didn't score a touchdown. They had 6 field goals, and somehow that was enough to beat the Patriots. And I think that's more of a statement about just how bad New England's offense was. So I'm expecting Kansas City to come out here and just dominate the Broncos. Trent, I'll throw it to you, though.
Yeah, that game last week was just weird. Drew Lock had 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, and he still beat the Patriots, which just shouldn't be how it is. The Patriots just kept giving the Broncos really good field position, and Philip Lindsay had a solid game on the ground. I'm going with the Chiefs here. I'm in agreement with Jeff. I don't think it's going to be that close of a game. Even though it's in Denver, it's divisional, I don't think it really matters. I think the Chiefs come out and they probably destroy Denver. That's all I have to say about that. All
right, Jay, throw it to you.
Yeah, if the Jets didn't exist, I think this would probably be the lock of the week, right? And I know I said that last week about this Broncos team. But, of course, the Patriots clearly did not look like they were ready to play. And we'll talk about that later when we get to them. But, this Broncos team, if they had been healthy coming into the season, this would be a much different game. I actually think that they can build something there, even in the AFC West. They draft. A lot of people liked how they drafted. They've got speed. Jerry Jeudy obviously is still developing. But this is not their game. This Chiefs team is loaded. Patrick Mahomes is still in that MVP conversation, obviously, perennially. And so I think the Chiefs should win this game.
All right, we all take Kansas City there. Moving on, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars, host of Trent's favorite player in the league currently, DJ Chark, taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, who every week just seem to find a way to lose games against tough opponents. It's been pretty tough to watch them down the stretch because Justin Herbert has looked like he's going to be a superstar in this league. They just haven't been able to find a way to get it done in clutch situations. However, will that change this week? I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars aren't necessarily as tough as the last couple of opponents that the Chargers have faced. Trent, I'll throw it to you. Who are you taking in this game?
Yeah, this is a weird game for me because I do love the Jacksonville Jaguars. I picked against them last week. I liked the team. Any team coming off a bye week, I'm a really big fan of that. And I went with the Lions, and they got the dub. Chargers, like you said, Justin Herbert looks really, really good. But you always got to pick an upset here and there. And I love the stash. I love Gardner Minshew.
They might
Honest,
bench him, Trent. Did you hear that? That
I,
they might bench him.
I don't. Well, they're not
Who's
going to
behind
after
him?
this week.
I have no idea. That says everything you need to say, though.
Right, right.
Yeah.
They're going to re-sign Blake Bortles.
Didn't he just get re-signed with
No, he
the
got dropped.
Broncos?
He got dropped.
They dropped him. I thought that they re-signed him.
I think he got dropped again.
All right, I'll keep talking. I'll look it up.
But I don't know. I'm going with the upset here. I don't really see it happening, but I really like Gardner Minshew and DJ Chark. And I'm pretty positive you both will go with the Chargers, and I want to go against the grain. The only way I see them winning the game is if James Robinson goes off, Chark goes off, and Gardner Minshew throws no interceptions, which is probably highly unlikely. But we're going to roll with it because why not? Jacksonville for the win.
All right. By the way, Blake Bortles did get re-signed to the Broncos practice squad.
Okay.
So that says everything you need to know about his current standing in the league. That was really a quarterback that led the Jacksonville Jaguars to the AFC Championship against the Patriots a few years ago. Just sit back and think about that one for a little bit. But while you do that, Jay, I'll throw it to you. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm taking the Chargers. Listen. I respect it. Because I took the Jacksonville Jaguars last week against the Lions. For reasons you just said. When Gardner Minshew plays well, he plays well. They have a pretty good receiving room. But this Chargers team, in my opinion, Anthony Lynn's a good coach. Justin Herbert is clearly playing well. And they're due for a win, right? It's the same thing we've been saying about the Titans and the Seahawks, where it's these close games. Okay, is it time for it to go the other way this time? I think that's got to happen, but I don't even think this is going to be a close game. I think the Chargers should have their way with this defense like every other team has had. This Justin Herbert dude, he's a star. I mean, what is he, our age? Or maybe a year older? Oh, my goodness. This dude is, absolutely lighting it up, and other coaches are saying that about him after the game. It's like when you're, playing, pick up in a park, and after the game, people are like, yo, you played really well. And it's like, yeah, that's Justin Herbert right now after every post game, even though he's losing. So I'm picking this Chargers team. And I think that they should get back on track to have a productive season that will set them up well for next year.
I think that's an appropriate assessment of that team right now. They're a franchise that could be legitimate contenders down the road if Justin Herbert continues to play at his current level, and assuming Austin Eckler is able to get back and stay fully healthy, which unfortunately we heard another update on him that it's going to take him a while longer than we were expecting to recover from that hamstring injury. So prayers up that he's able to get back on the field soon. And we're going to move on to our final three matchups of the week, kicking things off with our hometown favorite New England Patriots taking on the San Francisco 49ers. If you're going to look at this game from an unbiased approach, the Patriots are trending down and the 49ers are trending up. I'm interested to see what both of you have to say about this, knowing that fact. Trent, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, this is a tough one to pick because I really don't like Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, he played well last week, and he said he's feeling healthy again, but I really don't like Jimmy Garoppolo. Niners defense is for real. They have some injuries right now, but they're still really good defense. But I am biased, and I like Cam Newton, and I'm gonna go with the Pats. I think actually a factor here, even though there's no fans, is that he is back home, and he may just get some confidence out of that. This Patriots team maybe feel comfortable at home. I'm gonna go with the Pats and hope that Jimmy G just doesn't do well in his return to New England.
All right. Predictable response from Trent, the Pats fan. Jay, the Pats fan. I'll move to you.
I was going to say. I'm definitely also biased for the record. And that's why I'm picking the Patriots. Listen, I think if you, after that Broncos game, are like for any reason doubting Cam Newton's ability to be the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots, I think you need to go rewatch the first 3 games of the season. And we can't criticize the Broncos game without a crumb of context, and that is that our starting quarterback came down with the coronavirus. And people can compare that to the Titans situation all they want. I know the Titans went out there and won game. Last time I checked, Ryan Tannehill was not sick with the coronavirus. And last time I checked, they still went out there and practiced, unlike Bill Belichick, who withheld practices despite him being able to practice. That's a player's coach right there, at least this time around. So, yeah, I mean, I had the Patriots at 9-7 going into the season. We're 1 game behind that because we lost to the Broncos. But I think Patriots fans need to realize if we don't get Cam Newton this offseason, we are a losing football team. It's not even close. We're below 500. That's what it is. So I don't think you can completely say, I don't think many people are doing this either, but I don't think you can start talking about Cam Newton. Oh, well, he had a really bad game, which he did. But you have to add context, like I said. And then also, I think if you want to point fingers about this offense, you have to start with, why didn't we make a move at tight end? Why don't we have more of a vertical threat? We haven't really addressed those problems since last year. And I know that Cam adds a completely different dimension with his running game. Even when he's handing the ball off, run stoppers are still having to guess if he's going to keep it. That's something that we haven't been able to watch. It's very interesting to see. And I know that he can create more separation by scrambling and being mobile. But at the same time, you can't expect the world out of a guy. And I think the Patriots are for sure they have definitely a potential. Obviously, they're a great team. They're a great 2-3 team. They can turn this around. But, I think that our GM, Bill Belichick, is going to have to really look into the tight end and wide receiver position, just like a lot of people are saying, because Cam Newton is a human.
Yeah, at risk of all 3 of us being wrong, I'm going to take the Patriots in this one too. It's the return of Bill Belichick's prodigal son to Foxborough this week, and I think that Belichick wants this. Yeah, I think that Belichick wants this one bad. And obviously the 49ers, they're looking to get this win and to stay in playoff contention themselves. But if you're Bill Belichick, you know that this entire year he's been looking to make a statement that he doesn't need Tom Brady. And this is a game you have to win after dropping one to Denver. Not necessarily to stay in playoff contention because there's still a lot of football to play, but they need this one, man. I mean, the Miami Dolphins, credit to Trent, he said they were going to be a good football team at the beginning of this year and that they might make a push for the playoffs. And I didn't agree with them. And now look at them. They're ahead of the Patriots right now in the standings, despite having played one more game. And then somehow, for some reason, they decided to throw the reins to Tua when Fitz was playing incredibly well. But that's a story for another time. Focusing on the Patriots game, I just think that if Raheem Mostert is playing in this game, it's an entirely different story because we look at this Patriots run defense and they have been vulnerable, to say the least, this year. But Mostert's out. I don't think Jerick McKinnon is nearly as talented as him, especially on the ground. Maybe catching passes, that's a different story. But I'm not necessarily worried about McKinnon, Jeff Wilson Jr., whoever they decide to throw out there at running back. And then their wide receiver core is solid, but Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are not necessarily the deep threats that Jerry Jeudy, guys like that, have been the teams that the Patriots have faced so far. And I just think that Bill Belichick comes out, game plans well. He obviously has a full week of practice this time around, which I know both of us have mentioned that so far, but that's a huge factor when you're talking about preparing for a football game. And with a full week to prepare, I just don't see any way Belichick drops this game when it's pretty much a must win for the Patriots. All right, moving on to our
against them after 2 losses.
No, you can't. Absolutely not. All right. Moving on to the final 2 games, we have the red-hot Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the also red-hot Las Vegas Raiders, which in my opinion are a team that not a lot of people are talking about and not enough people are talking about. They made a huge statement beating the Kansas City Chiefs going into their bye week last game. Josh Jacobs now is fully healthy. Hopefully their receiving core is healthier. Derek Carr has looked like a franchise quarterback, which is something that a lot of people questioned if he was capable of doing. But yeah, are either of you guys picking against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers? Jay, I'm going to throw this one to you because I know you're more of a Brady fan in Tampa Bay than necessarily Trent and I are this year.
Definitely. I can definitely say that I'm rooting for the Bucs this year. Let me start with the Raiders though, because you're so right. They are a fantastic football team. And John Gruden's done a good job so far this year, and they've showed up against great teams. They've played great against good teams. That's a great sign for a football team. If you can show up against good teams, you're going to have a fun season. So I'm a little hesitant about this pick. I have to be honest. The Raiders can win this game for sure. But I'm going to have to go with the Bucs because I think this is probably the game where if they win, this is like, okay, they put two together against good teams. That's cementing something, right? And I want to – I'm probably going to go on a little bit of a rant here, okay? Just to be honest. This Bucs defense, everyone's talking about it, and rightfully so because they're elite. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this Bucs defense first. They added Winfield Jr. It's a great pickup, first of all. They lost Vita Vea, but they just traded for the Jets tackle. And their backup that played against the Packers did a pretty good job, too. So I think this defense is really elite, and I knew they would reach this level because last year they had the worst starting field position in the NFL, and they were 5th in DVOA. That's insane. I don't know if DVOA maybe accounts for that, but still, it's crazy, and they prevailed despite having the worst starting field position. So you knew they'd be good, and they were good back then. But the thing is, they went 7-9, and that's why you bring in someone like Tom Brady. And I want to make a comparison here because people are like, okay, this offense hasn't put together a complete game, which is very true. They have not played a full 4-quarter, everything is clicking game. But that'll get there, and here's why. In 2010, the Patriots drafted a brand new team, basically. It's one of the best draft classes, certainly in Patriots history and also in the NFL's history. They didn't have an offensive coordinator that year, at least a named one. Bill O'Brien was calling plays. And Brady, with this new offense, had to adjust. It's not as big of an adjustment. Obviously, I'm not saying it's as big of an adjustment as going down to Tampa, changing coaches, cultures, all that. But he had to adjust to a new offense that was originally, or for the previous 3 years, basically only giving targets to Moss and Welker. If you look at the targets from 2007, especially, the ball was only going to Moss and Welker pretty much. In 2010, Tom Brady switched everything around, 2 tight end set, spread the ball out. And a lot of people were comparing that roster to the Bucs roster this year, however valid that is. First 6 games for the 2010 New England Patriots, they averaged 29.5 points, okay? Brady had 4 picks. He had 11 touchdowns, 1,300 yards, and a 96 passer rating. 2020 Buccaneers through 6 games, 29.6 points per game. It's basically the same damn thing. Brady has 4 picks. He has 14 touchdowns, 1,500 yards, 97.8. I mean, those stats are basically identical. And I'm not saying that this is a lock for Brady, unanimous MVP, not going to throw a pick for the rest of the year, because no one should expect that. That's not going to happen. But I am saying that sometimes with a new offense, it takes time to click. And if you go look at the first years for these quarterbacks under Bruce Arians, it's insane that a 43-year-old is playing this well under this very specific coach with a very specific offensive game plan. And so, I think that once they get clicking, these questions about them being able to play a complete game will be answered just like they were in 2010. It's a completely different situation. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but sometimes it takes time to adjust to a new offense. And that's the same thing with Cam. It takes time to adjust. And so I'm picking the Bucs in this one because I think they have a chance to put 2 really good wins together.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Trent, I'll throw it to you. Let's see if you can follow that one up.
I'll take the Bucs. Yep, I'm gonna go with the Bucs. I'm gonna come over Jeff. Yep, there we go.
I'm taking the Raiders. I'm picking against both of you guys. Why are you surprised, Trent? Come on.
I mean, our guy Jay here just did a 4-minute PowerPoint lecture on why the Buccaneers are going to win this game, and he just completely disregarded everything he had to say.
Oh, I didn't disregard it. I didn't disregard it.
If someone presented me with that, it doesn't matter if it was the Jets against the undefeated Titans and taking the Jets by 1,000,000.
Wow, I didn't disregard it, and I'm sure that is something that Jay can go into watching this clip over again. Take a clip of it, send it to ESPN, and get hired immediately because that was brilliant. But at the same time, I'm not picking against the Raiders after that dominant showing against the Chiefs. And I think that this bye week, Trent, as you said earlier, this podcast, that bye week is huge for teams. And it was huge for the Raiders because they needed to get healthy. Josh Jacobs hasn't been fully healthy. We've seen them have to take him off the field for guys like Jalen Richard down the stretch when he should have been out there. And now he's going to be coming into this game full force. Obviously, Tampa Bay has a pretty stout run defense, but we've seen Jacobs tear apart stat run defenses like the Saints earlier this year. He is the definition of a workhorse back. And then Derek Carr looking to guys like Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, who's looked good, Henry Ruggs, who is back, who provides a legitimate deep threat for them. I had a conversation with some people earlier on Twitter this week about whether Henry Ruggs could actually be a potential league winner in fantasy football this year. And I think that he's a guy that has Tyreek Hill potential. He's not going to be the player that catches 8 or 9 passes per game. He's going to be a 4 to 5 reception guy every game moving forward. But if he's able to get 1 or 2 big hitters, especially against this Bucs defense, who, if we look at their defensive, them from a defensive standpoint, their secondary is the weakest part of their defense. Their run defense has been incredible so far this year. Yeah, I know, Jay, you don't want to hear it. Being basically a Bucs fan,
it's a good weakness. It's not a.
No. It's not a bad weakness. But it definitely is their weakest part of their defense. So that's how you're going to have to beat them. And then the Raiders, from a defensive side, they haven't looked too bad either. So I know I'm going against everything you said, Jay, but I've had this game penciled in as an upset this entire week. And despite your brilliant monologue, I am not going to pick against it. You have something to say?
No, but I want to agree with you for one thing. Derek Carr has played better football than I could imagine he played this year. And Henry Ruggs can absolutely take the top off the defense. And, that's something that if you watch the Chargers game, the Bucs clearly struggled with. Everyone is sort of glossing over the fact that Justin Herbert was throwing the ball way over the top of the Bucs defense in that game, and that's something that could happen in this game too. It's another AFC West team that likes to, go spread and throw the ball down, and But I don't necessarily think Josh Jacobs will be the X factor this week, just because that front 7 is crazy.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that Henry Ruggs definitely has the potential to be more of an X factor than Jacobs. Right. But I think that Jacobs coming off healthy, off a bye week, is definitely a big step for this offense that they'll need to win this game. All right, moving on. It's been a great podcast so far, Jay. We'd loved having you on. Hopefully you can join us again in the future. We are going with the somehow red-hot Chicago Bears. I know I say that to Trent's dismay, but I've been a huge fan of watching them get these wins, taking on a Los Angeles Rams team who are coming off a somewhat disappointing loss to the San Francisco 49ers. Trent, I'm going to throw it to you here first because I'm pretty sure your exact words were earlier this season, I will never pick the Bears in a matchup. And here they are sitting at 5-1? I think it is, heading into this game with about an 84% chance to make the playoffs if I did those calculations correctly and looked at that research right. Who are you taking in this game?
I first want to state that this game is weird. At least from a gambling side of this game, the Bears are 5-1. They're undefeated on the road. They're playing the Rams, and the Rams are 5.5 point favorites. Actually, they're 6 now. They open up as 5.5. So clearly, they are disrespecting the Bears just like I am, because I still think they're a legit team. I don't understand how the Bears are 5-1. I honestly think it's like Khalil Mack in their defense, and I just totally disrespect maybe them, because I still don't like their offense. They don't put up that many points, and they seem like they beat the Pats by 1. They played the Giants week 2 and won 17-13. How is that team 5-1? I don't understand. At the same time, I'm not huge on the Rams either. I really hate this game. I'm gonna go with the Rams because I refuse to take the Bears. And yes, the Bears were 5-1. I don't really care. Honestly, I hope the Bears win and I'm wrong again, and I'll be wrong, 6 weeks in a row or something like that. But I'm going with the Rams at home.
All right, Jay, who are you taking in this final game of the Week 7 picks?
Well, you brought up the Giants game, but the Rams also had a close win against the Giants. And I don't know. I think the Bears certainly look. I don't think they're the best 5-1 team that I've ever seen. But that defense is absolutely no joke, and Khalil Mack is obviously no joke. What is the highest? I don't know. This is an actual question. What is the highest passer rating against the Chicago Bucks team, or Chicago Bears team this season?
Chicago Bucks. I have no idea.
Well, I'm thinking about how much trouble they gave him, and
question,
Teddy Bridgewater, who was playing really well, had one of the highest, if not the highest, completion percentages in the NFL. Came into that game last week and just did not look good at all. I mean, this Bears team is giving everyone problems. You got me saying the Bucks. This Bears team's giving absolutely everyone problems. And I think this is a close game. And I'm definitely not out on this Rams team. Let me be clear, because this Rams team, that roster, just look at the roster. On paper, they're stacked. They have a good coach. Maybe Goff can play well once they get to the playoffs. But if they get to the playoffs. But I think I'm taking the Bears in this one. Simply because I think they can, create pressure for Goff, and that's something that he's always struggled with. And I don't really see how it's any different than other quarterbacks this season. I think it'll be not until Aaron Rodgers that we see this Bears team kind of get torched a little bit.
Yeah, Jay, I'm gonna agree with you here. I'm taking Chicago. Trent, you knew I was taking Chicago. You can't act surprised. This Rams team, I probably would have picked them, to be honest with you, if they hadn't looked so underwhelming against the 49ers. Obviously, I mean, they have so many weapons in this offense, and Jared Goff has been pretty solid so far this year, but Cooper Kupp definitely hasn't been the receiver that a lot of people expected out of him. Robert Woods finally had a good game, but we know that he is definitely inconsistent down the stretch. Sometimes they just don't really look to get him involved. Darrell Henderson, he's a hit or miss guy as well. So this is a game where the Rams could come out, and if they're clicking on all cylinders, they could torch the Bears. But the Bears have also only allowed two teams to score over 20 points so far this year, which is mind-blowing. I know, but their defense, as you said, Jay, it's no joke. And Nick Foles, as much as people like to joke about him, he's really hit his stride with the Chicago offense. He's found what is necessary to do to win, and that's look to Allen Robinson 5 or 6 straight times in a row on stretches, and then maybe throw a couple quick hitters in to guys like Jimmy Graham, Anthony Miller. But, A-Rob owners definitely are loving what they've been seeing from that duo so far this year. And running the ball, Trent is an A-Rob owner.
You can finish.
Oh, no, yeah. And then running the ball, David Montgomery hasn't been fantastic, but he's been usable for them. He's done what has been necessary for them to win games, even though he hasn't been as efficient as some people would have hoped. He's gotten much more involved in the passing game with Tariq Cohen out, which I think was a big necessary step for him to not necessarily stay useful as a starting running back, but to become a key part of their offense. So for all those reasons, I'm going to take the Bears. I don't feel great about this game, though. I think it's going to be another low-scoring affair. Not a lot of fantasy assets are going to go off in this one, except for A-Rod, because at this point, he's a lock for 12-plus targets in every game. So I'm going to take the Bears in this one. And Trent, I know you had something to say, so I'll throw it to you before we wrap things up.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Bears' season so far, and every single one of their games has finished within a touchdown score. They beat Lions by 4, Giants by 4. You get what I mean? To me, if you're betting, it makes sense to take the Bears plus 7 points, because every single game has been decided by a touchdown. I mean, the Colts was 8, but you can still get the 2 points. So if you're betting, go with the Bears. Why not?
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Jay, thank you so much for coming on again. I think we stretched a little longer than usual, but that's expected when we have 3 people on here. I think that we all provided some great analysis, had a great conversation, and hopefully we can get you on again in the future. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. I hope I don't look too bad when we look back after week 7, because that would be a very disappointing debut. And if you do have me on next time, I'll definitely get a haircut for you, and we'll clean this up.
Hey, man, I don't think you can be saying anything about a haircut when you look at me right now.
Oh, man, COVID is taking its toll, man. But listen, thanks for having me. I love talking football. I love at least opinions, wrong or right. It's nice to document them like this, right? So that we can see where we were completely off and where we were completely right. So I think that's part of the fun. And a lot of good teams in the NFL this year. It's been very fun to watch, and I hope that the season can continue.
All right. Sounds good. And that is going to be a wrap on this episode of the Rollout. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thanks to everyone who watched, for tuning in. Have a great week. Enjoy some football. Stay safe out there, everyone.